You know, thank God for education. Thank God for knowledge. People do not understand that there is a difference between law and rule of law.
I am Gordon Selassie Bakbo, and this is Make It Legal. Make it legal. Hi guys, welcome. Yes, today I'm introducing you to a very important discussion that I think you should know about. You all might have actually watched movies of this particular movie actor. Do you know him? He's called Kenneth Nkonkwo. You might have watched some of his movies, and I liked him a lot as an actor. But interestingly, he's become a politician and a full-time lawyer. He's doing quite well. And I think his advocacy, his simplicity is quite admirable. And I chanced upon a video where he was explaining or he was reacting to a judgment that was given by the Supreme Court. And in his reaction, he's sort of justifying why, Nigeria does not have rule of law and that all that there is in Nigeria is law. And that's, of course, was largely inspired by one great American legal philosopher who we call Lon Fuller. And Lon Fuller is one of the key proponents of the morality of the law. The fact that laws must be seen to be consistent with morals. I mean, he's a part of what the lawyer will call the natural law school of thoughts or the natural law theorist. They have a belief that laws must be divine. They must be God kind of law. They must have the inspiration of divinity. Every law that is made by man must be consistent with divinity, and the nature of God must reflect in our laws and all of that. I want you to watch the video closely, and when you are done, I will come back to share a few things with you. In the video you're going to watch now, he's trying to react to a Supreme Court judgment that was given, and he was clearly saying that indeed there is a difference between law and rule of law. And let's see how he explains that.
Thank God for education. Thank God for knowledge. People do not understand that there is a difference between law and rule of law. In Nigeria, we keep churning out laws every day. Nigeria is not lacking in laws. We have laws everywhere. More laws than even America, than any of those countries. But what we don't have is rule of law. And it's unfortunate. So when people call court, and they say rule of law, sorry, no. The court does not give you rule of law. The court gives you law. It is only when the law, because the courts give law because decided cases are part of our hierarchy of laws. Decided cases give us the legal principle that come out from a case. That is ratio decidendi. The decision of the court becomes part of the court. The judges are not there to make laws. The judges are there to interpret the laws. So rule of law can only be possible if the judges interpret the laws according to the wordings of the law. So anything that is their decision is law. But it can only be rule of law when the decision accords to the wordings of the law. When the courts use their own discretion to give judgment not in accordance with the wordings of the law, that is still law, because by our law any decision of the court is law. But that's not rule of law, because it will not be capable of performing the functions of law, which is principally to ensure orderliness in the society. For anything to become rule of law is not a system of government. Rule of law is an effective exercise, or a more effective or more better way to exercise authority. So rule of law is the effective implementation, interpretation of the law to ensure that the law performs the function of the law, which is orderliness of the society. So before the law can perform the functions of the law must accord to the basic principles. There are certain basic principles the law must conform to in order to be possible that law will perform the function of the law. If the law does not conform to those basic principles, the law will not be effective enough to become rule of law. What are these principles? They are as enunciated by Lawyer. They are the 8 desiderata of the principles of law. These principles of law include: 1, the law must be expressed in general terms. In other words, the law must apply to everybody without respect to the person. Everybody must be equal to the law. Everybody must be equal before the law, under the law, without discrimination. 2, the law must be publicly promulgated. There is no in a democracy especially, there's no room for any law to be done secretly. You have heard at times the legislature will do something, you heard that it is smuggled. It is that may be law, but it will not be rule of law, because if the people do not know what the law is, they can't obey it. 3, the law must be prospective. It cannot be retrospective, because you cannot command a man today to do something yesterday. It's impossible. So the law cannot be retroactive. It can only be prospective. 4, the law must be expressed in understandable terms. It must be clear. It must be unambiguous. 5, the law must be consistent with each other. Not coming to section 1 and say something, and coming to section 10 and say a contradictory thing. The Supreme Court must be consistent in their judgments, not giving a judgment in this case and in another case they are contradicting themselves, because one of the principles of law that can make the law to achieve rule of law is that it must be consistent with each other. The next, the law must not require a conduct that is beyond the capacities of the affected parties. When a law gives or requires a conduct that is impossible to achieve, that law can never conduce to rule of law, because we are human beings, we are limited. Then the law must be administered in accordance with the wordings of the law. I hope I've mentioned about 8 of them. The other principle, the last one, which is the 8th one, is that the law should not be changed so regularly to make the subject not to be able to rely on them. You know, you have a law today. Tomorrow you say you have another law. Next tomorrow you say you have another law. That means when I sit down to plan what I will do tomorrow, I won't know what the position of the law is. So one of the 8, which is the final one, is that the law should be constant. The law should be constant. At least over a long time, you have to apply the law equally to everybody. You don't have to be changing the law every day. The law will not contradict each other. The law must be clear and unambiguous so that rule of law can prevail. So the reason we have too many laws in Nigeria and we are not orderly in Nigeria is because we don't have rule of law. And that confusion permeates all the arms of government. The legislature, the executive, and the judiciary.
So yes, that is your once an actor. I don't think he acts movie again. I hardly see him act these days. Yes, so the 8 or 9 principles that he shared are true propositions of the law by a legal philosopher. Of course, he lived many years ago. He died somewhere in 1978 or so. So, I mean, this is many years ago issue, but these were the early thinkers about issues of law. They keep thinking about all these law matters. I mean, why arrest people, punish them, why compel them to obey the law, why make rules for them, and all of that. I mean, they've been thinking about laws in general terms. And all of these thinkers or philosophers, as we call them, have grouped themselves into various theorists or various categories. And this particular person, Lon Fuller, is one of the natural law theorists. He believes that law has one main purpose. The purpose of law is to subject human conduct to the rule of law or to the governance of law, as he terms it. So there is only law when it's able to subject the conduct of human beings to the governance of that law. I mean, it's a lot of things, and he explained them in a more detail in his book, which is called The Morality of the Law. This book, if you like to read law materials, you may want to read Lon Fuller's book, which is The Morality of the Law. I mean, you will find it interesting to read. So read about that book and then understand some of the things that our friend lawyer is talking about. Fuller also believes that there's a deep connection between law and morality. And his views were that if it must be called law, it must be consistent with morality. And so long as it's not consistent with morality, then it is not qualified to be called law, or it cannot meet the requirements of law and must not be obeyed. Very interesting thoughts there. What do you think about some of these things? And do you agree with the 8 principles that have been shared already by our friend Lawyer Kenneth Nkonkwo? Or you would think that they are not the only principle there are to ensure laws are complied with? I mean, share your thoughts in the comment section. And as always, do us a favor by subscribing to the channel and do like our video and share them as well. See you in the next video. And as always, I am Godwin Selassie Dakbo, and this is Make It Legal. Make it legal.